Depressive and bipolar disorders. Let's go over a case report. Janie Butterfield, demographic information. She's a 47-year-old, married, African American, heterosexual, cisgender female. Janice's pronouns are she, hers, and her. Okay, so let's discuss the history of her present illness. Janice was referred for psychotherapy after a recent hospitalization following a suicide attempt. Janice reported that the precipitant to her suicide attempt was the loss of her job in a real estate company where she'd worked for 25 years. Although she realized her company had downsized due to the economy, she found herself feeling profoundly guilty for the negative impact that her unemployment would have on her family. Janice reported she's been married for 27 years and has 3 daughters, one of whom lives at home. Another of her daughters is in college, and her youngest daughter will be attending college at the start of next school year. Janice reported she had become increasingly overwhelmed by stress about her financial situation because her family mainly relied on her income. Along with feelings of guilt, Janice reported that she'd felt so depressed and down that she'd spent many days in the past 2 weeks in bed and often found herself thinking of ending her life. She stopped taking the pain pills prescribed for her chronic backaches to save up if she needed them for later. One evening when her husband was out, she attempted suicide by taking all her saved up medications at one time. Janice's husband returned to find her unresponsive and rushed her to the hospital just in time to save her life. She was hospitalized in an inpatient psychiatric unit and given medication until her suicidal thoughts and severe depression decreased enough so that the doctors deemed her no longer a threat to herself. She followed the referral given to her by the psychiatrists on the inpatient unit to attend weekly psychotherapy for a follow-up. She'd never been in therapy before. During her first therapy session, Janice reported that she had thought about going to therapy many times before. She explained that her depressive episodes usually lasted about 1 month, but sometimes they lasted as long as 3 months. During these episodes, she missed a few days of work but would manage to go about her normal routine, although it was difficult. She described how while she was at work, she would go to her car just to cry because it was just so painful to be around others. I just didn't want to do anything with life at those points, she recalled. Her depression would eventually improve on its own, and she would lose interest in getting treatment as a result. She reported that she'd occasionally thought about suicide in the past when feeling depressed, but she'd never made and carried out a plan as she had during her most recent episode. Janice cited her family as her main reason for never taking her thoughts about suicide more seriously. She also noted that her religion sees suicide as a sin. Janice went on to explain how her depressed moods always caught her off guard because they would occur directly after long periods when she felt happy and energetic. She stated these moods usually started after she had made a large real estate sale and felt invincible afterwards. During these times, she described how she often needed very little sleep due to the seemingly endless amounts of energy she possessed, and she would begin to take on many new projects and clients at work, much more than would be expected of her. She also splurged on lavish clothing or jewelry, and during her last energetic period, she had purchased new cars for herself and her husband. These expenditures were uncharacteristic for Janice. She described herself as usually being quite frugal. Due to her constantly moving thoughts, Janice found it difficult to concentrate and was so distracted she was rarely able to finish anything she began to take on at work. She would feel disappointed that she had to give up some of her projects, and her joyful feelings would turn to irritability and anger. She reported that her husband usually experienced the brunt of her irritable mood, and this caused major problems in their marriage. Janice further reported that she felt like she ignored her family altogether due to her work habits when she was feeling particularly energetic. She remarked, "When I'm feeling that good, I can only think about myself and what feels good to me. I stopped being a mother and a wife." Her extreme spending periods eroded her family's savings, which was especially a concern now that she'd lost her job. She also felt incredibly guilty for not being able to pay for her daughter's college tuition. Janice had never talked directly with her husband or her children about her vast mood shifts. She worried that if she told her family about her personal difficulties, they would, quote unquote, see me as a weakling instead of the head of the household. Oh, that is so much pressure, you guys. Remember, this chapter is about depressive and bipolar disorders. So now that we read that case report, there's more. So Janice's psychiatric history. Janice had never received psychiatric treatment or therapy in the past, though she reported she had experienced mood swings since she was 19. She estimated that she had severe mood episodes, either manic or depressive, about 3 to 4 times per year. That's a lot. When reflecting on the severity of her mood episodes, she stated that she felt her behaviors had been more extreme in more recent years than when she was younger. Probably because of stress, Janice reported that she noticed the patterns in her mood swings always began with an energetic period, directly followed by a depressive episode, and then a period of several months of stability. More recently, though, she noted that the periods of stability had only been lasting 1 or 2 months, and her mood episodes had been lasting longer. So now let's discuss Janice's risk level. It's moderate to high. Due to Janice's recent suicide attempt, stress related to loss of employment and financial difficulties, and symptoms of depression, she is considered a moderate to high risk level. Protective factors include social support through family, religion, and willingness to engage in mental health treatment. Okay, so that's going to lower her risk level. So, case formulation. Janice's initial diagnosis from the psychiatric unit was major depressive episode, and her current presentation also met this criteria. However, in the initial therapy session, she reported also having a history of manic episodes that were followed by periods of depression, which she had not mentioned while she'd been hospitalized. The symptoms of the manic episode she described caused significant financial problems for Janice due to excessive spending sprees. In combination with losing her job, these financial problems caused significant stress and may have contributed to the severity of her most recent depressive episode, which eventually led to her making a suicide attempt. Therefore, her diagnosis is actually bipolar 1 disorder, with the most recent episode depressed. Treatment plan. It is recommended that Janice continue to attend weekly psychotherapy. In therapy, it will be necessary to make a suicide safety plan due to her history of suicidal ideation and recent suicide attempt. Therapy should initially focus on psychoeducation, symptom management, and mood monitoring. She will also be referred to an outpatient psychiatrist for medication reconciliation, given that psychotherapeutic medication is clinically recommended in the treatment of bipolar disorder. Okay, so what we learned here, we're discussing depressive and bipolar disorders. What we learned here is that she had depression. She had recurring depression episodes, but she also had manic episodes, which means that she would get like a lot of high energy and she would do things that were negatively affecting her life. And they would kind of like recur. They were like recurring episodes. So that's considered bipolar 1. If she didn't have those manic episodes, apparently it would just be considered major depressive, which is also, of course, like difficult to have. But because her depressive episodes also include episodes of mania, she was diagnosed as bipolar 1. Okay, friends, I am going to stop this live and then come back, and we're going to discuss depressive disorders.